So, I think this is one of the tougher awards for me this year, Brendon. Like where I think
same.
we are. Like I think it's hard to define. I think you every guy kind of has warts and not warts. I think this. Tell me this here. I'll give you a list of candidates, and then I'll tell you. You can tell me if there's anyone that that should be on there that I would not have. It's like a top 5, okay? In no order.
Yeah.
Draymond Green, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brook Lopez, Evan Mobley, and Bam Adebayo. That's 5.
Yeah.
Nick Claxton probably needs to be like kind of on the edges there in that discussion.
If they never made the trades, he would have been in our conversation for sure.
Yeah. But I think the main 4 for me, as far as like real candidates, would be Draymond, Brook, Mobley, and Triple J.
So the one other player I think I would put on there, I think you could put Drew or Giannis as well, but I think Brook as being like the buck on the short list feels right. The other one player, I don't think he played enough minutes at all, but Alex Caruso is absolute.
Yeah.
He's at the absolute top of all the advanced stuff, and the Bulls are quietly a top 10 defense this year in the NBA. And it's not, you can't say one guard is like solely responsible for that. And again, he did not play many minutes, all things considered, but he deserves a lot of credit as the best defender on a top 10 defense and somebody who all the advanced stats say when he's on the floor, the Bulls are suffocating and he steals the ball like mad and everything else. But for all the reasons I just said, I couldn't quite get him in my top 3 or really like in the main conversation, but he's a stud. He'll be on all defense for sure.
Yeah, that he's absolutely should be. Him and Drew are just like, can you imagine if they were on like the same team, like how hard it would be to fucking score against those two guys?
I mean, they had Lonzo and now they don't. So we saw a little bit of that.
Yeah, like light Drew.
Yeah.
So who would your pick be?
So I went with Jaren Jackson Jr.
Okay.
And I'll make the case. He leads the NBA in defensive effective estimated plus minus. He leads in blocks per game. Memphis has the second best defense in the NBA. I collected these notes before the trash games from the weekend, so if anything's a little off,
look, honestly,
sorry.
those games are they
like don't count.
Pointless. Yeah.
Yeah. So all that, Memphis second in defense. He leads in advanced stat defense and blocks per game. And to me, I think he's the single most feared defensive player by opposing coaching staffs in the NBA this year. In terms of, there's a regular season game coming up. Memphis is on the schedule. JJJ puts the fear of God in whoever on a coaching staff has the scout for that night, more than I think anybody else that there is. And there's a variety of reasons for that, and I think minutes coming into play here does matter. I think some of the other players and how much they played or what role they played, that's up for debate. That's obviously my opinion, but I feel like Jaren Jackson, he just alters what an offense is trying to do and needs to be accounted for more than anyone else. And when you add in the statistical stuff that I just said, to me, I'm able to look past the fact that total games, he's a little behind other guys. Total minutes, he's quite a bit behind some guys. But to me, I don't factor that in so much for Defensive Player of the Year. It's not most valuable defender. We're talking about who was the best defender. And yeah, there is a threshold where I'm going to dock somebody and say they didn't play enough. But for me, this year, with how close it was and the fact that he dominated in so many other ways and all the stuff I just said, I was able to give him the edge anyway, despite that he wasn't on the court as much as some were.
The foul stuff, I think, should be like a real, like, dent in his case. Like, as much as I know, like, Memphis people like get mad about this and all that stuff, like, if you're just not on the court as much, I think that does hurt your case.
Mm-hmm. So he fouled out of 4 games, and he had at least 5 fouls in 18 games.
That's crazy.
He only played like 63 games. He played 63 games this year. So 18 out of 63, that's about more than a quarter. He was in, considerable foul trouble. So just to illustrate what you're saying, because I do agree, it should matter, and it did matter to me, but I think he still got the edge.
He has an insanely high block rate, an insanely high steal rate. The volume is there in terms of just everything you could ask him to do. You know, the foul stuff is, you know, it's like relative to his position, like he doesn't foul as much, but he just like gets himself in foul trouble is more kind of the way you'd put it. I'm going to do the homer pick. I'm going to pick
You're
Evan
picking?
Mobley. I'm picking Evan Mobley. Here's why.
He's not going to win.
He's not going to win, but
I'm not saying that makes you wrong. Give me your case. Give me your case. I won't argue with you before you're done. Tell me why you pick him.
So I think he's the most important defender on one of the best 2 or 3 defenses of the entire league. I will give you that his case, I think, is hurt by the fact that Jared Allen gets a brunt of the volume as a rim protector thing, and that matters a ton. I think like the way, even as the game has changed, rim defense and volume defense at the rim is still very much how you need to have that. That is why Rudy Gobert won like a bunch of Defensive Player of the Year awards, right? Like that. Yeah. That is why that happened. I think what Mobley is doing at his size and like the various things he can do, I think is just makes him just like kind of a one-of-one defender in a lot of ways. Like he is almost like, you know, there's been KG comps and stuff for him. I kind of almost like see like his evolution is going to be something of like a 7-foot Draymond, where it's like he can slide into the post under guy, he can switch, he can play the passing lanes, he's going to do all this stuff. Doesn't have to have a steal rate as Jaren Jackson, but pretty good block rate. Does not commit fouls. Just doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Well, and just to add to that, he was top 10 in total minutes played in the entire league this year.
Yeah.
And so it's polar opposites with him and Jaren.
Played 78 games out of possible 82. He's just on the floor all the time this year. Incredibly durable. And he can just do anything. Like he is both like really high in contests at the rim and contests on 3-pointers. There's no one else in this candidacy pool that is even comparable in terms of how much different stuff he's being asked to do.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you. Do you feel like Mobley is more versatile than Jaren? Because I think that's part of the case for him, is that he, you know, there were games this year where he guarded Butler, Tatum. You don't see Jaren doing that.
No. And some of that maybe is because, like, I would be curious to, like, if you got Trusterman to Taylor Jenkins, and it's like, hey, like, if you didn't have Dylan Brooks, would, like, this be a thing you do with Jaren? Like, all of this is circumstantial, right? Like, Brook Lopez benefits from having Giannis on his roster as this like monster.
Sure, and like Cleveland doesn't have a backup center, right? So then you actually have Mobley like almost being forced to be in different spots on the court, whereas Jaren, they don't. You know, Adams has been hurt a lot, but they always have some big man playing center. Jaren does play backup center a lot, but even then he's really sort of there as a rim protector. They don't really switch a lot. They don't do a lot of that stuff, whereas Mobley has been game planned into a lot more different spots.
And Brendon, throughout the year, when I'm watching Mobley, and like, look, this is a guy I saw in person around 40 times. I missed like a couple home games here and there.
Slacker.
Guess what? I didn't go to the Charlotte game on Easter because brother, I didn't need to go to that one. This is a guy that like some of the best scorers in the league that you would see Tatum and Bradley Beal and Butler. And pick your star player that he would get switched on to. Those guys just like give up the ball when they get switched on. They're just like, nope, not doing this. Not doing this.
Yeah.
And he's in his second year and he's like played all these games. I don't think he's gonna win it either. But I would be like, I think there's a real case for him to win it now. And I kind of think like I would be like smashing a future on him winning one in the next like 3 years.
Yeah, if anybody can find that on any sort of sports book, I would hit that pretty hard. Even like if you can get early odds for next year, like as soon as this year's awards get announced, like just hit it. Because I agree. So I had him third, and so I was more just surprised that you went for it.
It really just might be like I have watched him so much more.
Sure,
that
you
like,
appreciate it more.
It is just like, and to me the games played and the foul stuff does just matter.
Yeah. I think continuing to compare him with Jaren is pretty interesting here. So, Mobley's listed at 7 feet. Is he 7 feet tall?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. It doesn't feel like it. Jaren Jackson moves fluidly as hell. Evan Mobley moves even more fluidly than that. And like that's super crazy, and it contributes to why he's able to handle so many different types of things. The last part here that I am wondering on. So I had Brook Lopez second, just for the record. Pretty straightforward. Led the NBA in total blocks, first in defense. Milwaukee's first in defense. They allowed 8.5 fewer points per 100 possessions with Brook Lopez on the court. That's pretty elite. That's the best mark he's ever had, which adds to a case that he's had a case a lot of years. But on that note of the on-off stuff, the Cavs defense is statistically worse with Mobley on the court. What do you make of why that is?
I think there are.
Is it those backup center minutes?
It is the backup center minutes, and it's the fact that like they really do not have the size. Like they've gotten really small in a hurry when there's not two bigs on the floor.
Yeah.
If like they are playing like Jetty Osman at the 4, like Karis LeVert is playing like minutes. Like they are skewing so small that I think they are just like the meat grinder stuff is him, and like those lineups with Mobley at the 5 are killing it, like net rating wise for the most part. But they just have skewed so small where like they could like if they could get David Roddy, just be a big body Roddy and dunk on people and be like a deterrent on drives. I think it would really boost kind of what those lineups look like, because it is putting Mobley in this spot where he has to cover like everything, and as good as he is, as good as all these guys are defensively, there is no player in the league who is like going to succeed at just covering for everything everywhere all war at once, right? Like they are going to just be put into the blender and
except for Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, just some googly eyes and some stuff, but. I'm glad you caught that. It made me happy. This is why we're buds, because I slipped that in there, and we're just rolling.
Yeah, I got you. No, I think it's all a great case for Mobley. I hear you. I do think that, their depth is a problem when he's out there as the backup 5. I would imagine those lineups get killed. He's also just been out there a ton, and sometimes randomness happens to you, right? Like he'll be out there on a night when Mitchell's sitting and the team's worse, but Mobley gets that counted against him in the plus minus. Like it's when you play so much, I almost think that can also sometimes work against you unless you're the best of the best of the best in the league. So I had him third. So I had Jaren, Brook, Mobley as my top 3. Who did you have to fill out as 2 and 3?
I went Jaren 2 and I went Brook 3. Okay. I think Draymond would have been like a reasonable 3 as well. But like if we're looking
their
at like
defense is middle of the road.
So
that's where I couldn't do it with Draymond.
This is where I was going to go. I would say if people want the Draymond case, Michael Pina wrote about this at The Ringer. I think it is much more articulate and well thought out. He actually voted Draymond for first, and Pina's the best. Shouts to Pina. Here's just the defensive ratings from Cleveland Glass for these teams that were of the main candidates. So Cleveland has the best defensive rating in the league, 111 gives up 111 points per 100 possessions. That's 4.1 points better than league average. Memphis is second. They're at 111.3. So they're like right there with Cleveland. Milwaukee has a defensive rating on the year of 111.5. That is half a point worse than Cleveland per 100 possessions. That is some really thin margins. You slide down a little bit. Golden State is 11th at 114.12. That is, less than a point better than league average. I think that counts for something. I think that has to factor in here. And those 3 guys that we've discussed are at premium positions and anchoring the best defenses in the league. So that is how I settled on my top 3.
Yep, pretty much the same with me. That's how I kind of sifted away, Bam and Draymond and whatnot. Is their teams weren't quite as good, and so I discounted their overall impact if the team defense wasn't as good, and then Caruso for the reason I said. So I think we had the same top 3. Do you think Jaren will win?
I do. It seems that
too.
It seems that way.
Yeah, and I think it's the easy pick for the people who don't pay as close of attention, because it's just the one that's kind of gotten the most hype throughout the year. But speaking of that and hype, I think we can go to MVP.
Just really think the foul trouble thing is going to show up.
Yeah, but do people really, like the beat writer who covers like Detroit, are they going to lean toward Brook Lopez or the guy who gets attention for being a great defender? I don't know. We'll see. But Jaren is the betting favorite too.